We would like to then talk a little bit about some of the teaching strategies that we employ. In the manual, in this Mastering the Piano philosophy and approach to teaching, we give you information from the first lessons. Now, I think probably most of you in the room are already very experienced teachers, so that might not be useful to you at all. However, you may not have had the experience of having parents in the room with you. If you start teaching very young children and you haven't done that before, having the parents in the room can be very disconcerting. And so we give you strategies on how to prepare the parents and prepare yourself for dealing with them. Because very often, if you get a parent that comes in and for some reason is not quite on the same wavelength with you, it almost can become a battle of you and the parent against or you against the parent, trying to help the child, but you're battling something or other that's going on emotionally with the parent. So we have all kinds of strategies of helping you to deal with that, namely enlisting the parent as an ally. So that whenever you are dealing with the parent, if they are appearing to be difficult and awkward for you, the most helpful thing you can do in dealing with them is to encourage the idea that you are both on the same side of the fence helping the child. And that usually eliminates or incredibly reduces any tension you might have. Another very powerful strategy that we would probably only talk about is the fact that if you have a difficult mother or helper, whoever the helping person is in the lesson with you, and they are being obstreperous in any way, what they need is praise. It's the most astonishing thing. You can sort of think to yourself, but they're being so awkward and they're just causing me so much trouble and they interrupt the lesson and they're doing this and that. And usually it's because they need attention. They need stroking. They need loving. As much as you love their child, you need to love them too. And so I'm always talking, and those of you who were there at the lesson yesterday perhaps saw that my goal yesterday was not for me to do anything for those children. My goal was to nurture the relationship of the home teacher, the parent, and the child, and to help the child especially to have a greater recognition of how much mommy is doing to help. And that's how you really can nurture a wonderfully productive relationship with the parents, because they don't get that appreciation very often, and everybody needs it. My sister, who was a wonderful grade school teacher, gave me one of the best pieces of advice I ever had as a young mother. And she said, Valerie, do you ever have any difficulty with the kids' teachers at school? You write a letter to the teacher praising her. Now, why would I want to do that, I said, when she's being mean to my darling son? Mother Tiger's blood comes up. She said, oh, Valerie, you just think about it. I'm going to tell it to you from the teacher's perspective. She said, as a teacher, if anybody feels their child is having a problem with me, she said, they don't come and talk to me about it. They don't come and talk to my principal about it. They go right down to the school board and try and have you fired. So she said, imagine the next day when the mother has been down at the school board trying to have you fired, and their child walks into the room. How do you feel about that child? But, she said, you write a letter to the teacher, praising the teacher, and she said, you can always find something they've done that's okay. Praise them to the skies and thank them for being so good to your child. Can you imagine the reaction now when your little child comes into the room? That teacher is going to stand on her head just in the hopes that maybe before she dies, someone might write a second letter. So, my children had, in fact, a wonderful grade 1 teacher Lloyd loved her so much that he announced to me that he wasn't going to go on to grade 2. He would stay behind in grade 1 with Miss Shuckhart until she retired, and then he would go on to grade 2. I was a little worried about that. I thought, this is not quite the way it's supposed to go, but I didn't say anything. And as soon as he got his report card saying promoted to grade 2, he forgot all about Miss Shuckhart and was ready to move on. So I thought, well, that crisis resolved quite nicely. Nevertheless, I adored Miss Shuckhart myself, and then my daughter had her as well, wonderful grade 1 teacher. And when we moved away from the area, I wrote a letter to Miss Shuckhart saying how much we had appreciated her. 7 years later, we went back on sabbatical leave to that same town, Madison, Wisconsin. And lo and behold, after a few weeks, didn't I bump into Miss Shuckhart at the grocery store? I said, "Oh, Miss Shuckhart, how nice to see you. I'm Lloyd and Megan's mother." She said, "Oh, yes, Mrs. Watts, I still have the letter you wrote."
Aww.
It's valuable. It's valuable. So, you have any trouble with anybody, you write them a letter praising them. I guarantee you will not have any more difficulty with that whatsoever. So, we give strategies for how to prepare the environment and how to establish rapport. That's just what we've been talking about. Big bag of activities of creating success for the children from the very first lesson. Simple things that probably, if you have been teaching any length of time, you already have a bigger bag of tricks than we could even think of. But there might be one in there that you haven't included in your repertoire of ways to establish rapport at the first lessons. They're in there.